Alright folks, we are, if you want the Need for Speed, check this out. They're doing a radio controlled airplane demo.
While this engine is turning over right now, the sound you are hearing oh yeah! The engine idles at 60,000 RPMs and at full throttle. Will be turning over at 160,000 RPM. It's powered by a King Tech jet engine. 38 pounds of thrust in a 50-pound airplane. Going to taxi down the runway, point her into the wind. They're probably going to check the brakes to make sure that they are working. All right, they ducked behind a couple of the balloon vehicles out there, so I can't see what they're doing. But I am going to assume that they are going to turn her into the wind. And once they've got everything squared up and checked, here comes the power. Let's listen. Turbine power. This engine works on exactly the same principles that Sir Frank Whittle and Hans von Ohain came up with during World War II. He's got approximately 2 gallons of fuel on board this airplane, and he's good for about 8 minutes of flight. Which means that if you figure the fuel consumption, this aircraft is burning slightly less fuel than your average home oil heat furnace. Going to line up, going to do a high-speed pass. Let's listen. The Academy of Model Air and Audits in this country has quite a stringent program when it comes to flying a radio-controlled model jet. First off, this is the big one. You can't break 200 miles an hour. For the record, this aircraft is more than capable of busting 200 miles an hour. However, at a lot of the jet events, they do have radar guns out there and they're clocking speeds. Now over in Europe, they're doing 300 miles an hour.
Sorry.
But my question is why? At 200 miles an hour, you spend most of your time turning the airplane around. You'll notice he gets out to the far end, now he's got to turn the airplane around. The time that the airplane spends in level flight is measured in seconds, as opposed to turning the airplane around, which is the majority of the flight. And while the engine does have a self-contained starter on board, a 4-point hesitation roll, now, I was telling you, the engine does have an onboard starter, but however, should you flame out in flight, you cannot restart the engine while you're in the air. You don't have the time. All right, going to do 8 points this time. Now, while Dave Malchione Jr. is flying this airplane, the only time he's ever using full power is on takeoff and on any kind of vertical maneuvers. Other than that, he's flying this airplane between 1/4 to 1/2 power. The idea is you don't want to bust the speed limit, you don't want to overstress the airframe, which you can do, and you want to conserve fuel. Here comes a high-speed, low pass. Now the Academy also has a waiver program in effect. You need to be a qualified pilot. You just can't go buy one of these airplanes and one of those engines, put it all together and go fly it. The Academy requires that you have a waiver that certifies that you are competent in the operation of a turbine engine. Because these little model guys have the same quirks as the full scale. And if you're not careful, they can destroy the engine or worse. So you gotta know what you're doing. It's not like a piston engine by any means. The other